Hey familia, in this episode we are going to talk all things complaining. Are you a complainer, Enzo, would you say?
Sometimes I complain, Claire.
Same, so do I. We're going to talk about the different types of complaining, how to be an effective complainer, and everything in between. Hey Enzo. Oh, this is probably too long for a voice note.
Hey Claire, I know. Save it for the podcast.
Your space for an unfiltered and candid conversation.
Skip the small talk and dive in deep.
Hey everyone!
Hey everyone!
Welcome back.
Was
Episode
too long for a voice note. New season,
Here
2020-2025. How are we? Welcome, familia.
Welcome back. Thank you so much to everybody who's listened to episodes 1 and 2. We hope you're
so
loving them.
I'm so excited that we're back with a new season.
Right?
I think I miss it so much. So yeah, thank you very much for all the support, all the new followers as well.
Definitely.
It means a lot to us.
Totally. Well, just a quick chitty chatty before we get into the episode. I was going to ask Enzo very quickly.
What, Claire?
What did you think of Kendrick's Super Bowl performance? In a nutshell.
I think it was fine. I think the production was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like it was kind of like a game. I feel like it has like 4 sets and it looks like, I don't know, it made me think about like a game, like a control game, like a console.
Yeah.
You know, something like that. And I like how it was designed. I think overall, there's something that I read on Twitter. I think it's a bit accurate, that I feel like halftime shows should be for pop stars because I think like those 12 minutes, and because everyone has like a lot of expectations, they need to be like a really big show. And sometimes if you're a rapper or if you are like a rock band, it can feel a bit like not as impressive. I feel
interesting,
which I kind of agree. I feel like I don't know a lot of his songs. I mean, I used to love like Be Humble. That song is good. And I Sit Down, Be Humble. I was like obsessed with that song back in the days. But there was another song that I really liked for him, wasn't there. But I don't know, I think it was okay. I think SZA was cool. Serena Williams, it was alright. I think like the whole drama with Drake, I don't care about it. I think I'm a bit bored about it as well. So that's why. I think it was fine. It wasn't... Okay. I think it wasn't that
not your favorite.
Entertaining. He's good though.
Yeah.
And I think he's good and he has good lyrics, and I think he's like a proper rapper in the sense of like very like a lot of background, like a lot of like good lyricism. But I don't care about this diluted drama. You know? Do you like it?
I loved it. Yeah. I really like Kendrick. I would love to see Kendrick live, and I love SZA. Like, I think she's great. I don't care about the Drake drama. I do find it quite funny. I do think Drake's quite annoying, so I kind of understand. I think it's going a little bit too far, but I do think it was. I think it was really good, and I think it was very clever, the performance. Yeah. Hopping into my topic.
Ooh, I'm excited to hear what you're coming with today,
think of the way to bring this topic up. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this. I've got some notes, so we'll see what direction we go in. But
yes,
I want to talk about complaining. And complaints. And I think the reason I was bringing this up, not to be too morbid, but my dad died in September. And I feel like ever since my dad died, I've been even more not up for complaining from other people. It's funny. Like, I think when... I'm like, it's so funny. Like, obviously, not funny. But when somebody close to you who you love dies, obviously, as you know, like, it really changes a lot of, like, your perspective, I think. And I think I was already someone who wasn't really that up for complaining, but, you know, whatever. But I think my patience is, like, so short for it this time. And I thought, why complaining is bothering me so much. So I thought, let's bring it to the podcast. Let's unpack it with Enzo.
I like this topic,
Got lots of different things to kind of go into. I think before we start, I think we might just talk about why people complain. Why do people complain? Right at the beginning. So it can be for different reasons. It can be for emotional regulation. So it can be a way to kind of like obviously release that frustration, anxiety or anger. And it can be a coping mechanism. It's a form, I never really thought about this, but it's a form of social bonding.
100%.
So it's like complaint of like misery loves company. So complaining can create a sense of connection with people. Problem solving. sometimes complaining obviously can be productive because it helps you to kind of have that back and forth of working with somebody you trust, and then you kind of find a solution.
Agree.
And then the last one is kind of like attention and validation. Some people complain to seek sympathy, validation, or reassurance from others. So let's get into it. What are your initial thoughts on complaining? Do you think you're a complainer? How are you with complaints? What do you think about this?
Really interesting, Claire. The mic is on and on my side of the table. Complaining. I think personally I'm not a big complainer. I know you can agree with that. Yeah,
you're not a complainer. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking you're really not a complainer.
Yeah, I just feel like I don't have the time to complain. I feel like, it's not my nature. I think I feel boring complaining too much about it. It's like, if it's something bothers me too much, can I change it? If not, let me move on from that. I think that's more for the good, for the bad. That's my approach. But when you were reading these things, like one thing that came to my mind, I think what complaining is important is like for social change, for example. Like, as you said, like if people complains about things that needs to be changed, all the complaining together can be turned to something positive.
Okay.
That's what got into my mind.
You mean like a movement kind of thing?
For example, like if something is not working, if we all start complaining about that thing not working, we all be together for like for the same goal, and that could create a change.
Very true.
So I think that point of complaining is really good. Okay. And I think like complaining, like for example, with coworkers as well, or coworkers or anyone, I think like it is really like a bonding process. I think I have found in the past, bonding with people through complaining at work. It happens like when you start complaining about something that maybe it's bothering you, then you start to like get to know more the other person, you get to know the other views, etc.
Okay.
But obviously there's always a but.
It's funny about the work thing, because I think I have a really different opinion with the work complaints, because this is actually one topic that I kind of thought of because of work, because I think that work, especially if people aren't happy in that company or at that moment, I think work can create that really perfect environment for complaining, because you're there so much and it takes up such a big chunk of your day and your life. For me, I don't know, I would argue, like, number one, how much closer it can make you to somebody else complaining. Like, is that making you closer?
Closer, I think, for example, at work. Like,
do you think
as closer you can be with, it's not closer as, let's be the best friends, maybe. But I think some people that you may never talk with before, now you get to know them.
True.
But I think it's depend on what's the take on this complaining. Like, if it's always a complaint, I find annoying. I remember, like, there's like a little inside of this, like I remember like last year we had like a employees forum at my company, blah blah blah, and we were all bringing like things that we would like to change in the company, and they put us in different groups, and in those groups I get to know and meet like people that had never spoken before, and now when I see those people, we talk not about work even.
That's nice.
It's just like, hey, how are you? Like after that, at least I can count 3 people now that we kind of like, from that complaining bond, we starting to chat, and when we see around, we talk a bit. How's your day? Blah blah blah. Obviously, it's not like we have a friendship now, but maybe it can turn a friendship if any of us want. But I think that helped us to connect, because it's kind of like community suffering. You know, when you suffer in community with other people, it's just like, I don't sit with them to complain. We don't talk again about these things, because whatever it is that was happening in my company, but we don't get into much. I think the problem is maybe when you have someone like a coworker that you every day talk about the same things, that could be a problem.
Or maybe when you're talking and all it is complaining. I think that's what I find difficult, and I think that's what I can find about work. It's like I think it's kind of going back to what you said at the beginning of like, and I think that we all have different personality types and go into like the different types of complainers. But I think I personally feel like there's only so much that you can complain, and then I think kind of what you were saying, I think I'm more like, okay, so you're not happy at work, for example. Well, you have 2 options, right? Like, you can try to change things in your job, or you can leave. So let's not talk about this so many times, because I think it's not super helpful.
It's a question for everyone listening as well to think about it. Like, do you think like if you are more like an avoidant type of person, you prefer to complain less, because complaining it can be like opening up or like getting too much into something, blah 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 blah. And when you are more like an avoidant, you prefer to just like detach yourself from the situations because you want to confront them too much.
It's a very interesting question. I wonder if maybe complaining goes with the kind of more anxious attachment style, or the more like anxious kind of person, because you're complaining and maybe like, I don't know though, I don't know if it's like, if it has much to do with avoidance, because I think you can still be avoidant and still complain quite a lot, you know. I do kind of feel
that's true. I agree.
I'm not sure if it actually like, if I had to say one, I would say maybe it goes more hand in hand with the anxiety one, but I'm not entirely sure. Do you think that maybe complaining is more avoidant?
I mean, definitely anxiety trait. If you are a person with a lot of anxiety, or you get like really nervous in different situations, I think you will be more prone to be like complaining about things, because everything, I feel like everything could feel like not an attack, but like something that could go wrong, something that could be in a problem. So you're going to get into the complaining stage. At the beginning of the episode, you mentioned like when your dad passed away and all that like period of your life, which is still going on, of course. But like how do you find yourself in a situation where you are, let's say, allowed to complain? Because, you know, I feel like sometimes
it's true.
We have moments that depends on what happens in your life. It's like, well, you should be fucking complaining. You're allowed to be in whatever you're going through. Like, it's fine to complain.
Yeah.
So how do you find yourself in that, and how comfortable you were maybe complaining or showing to people that you love or close to you that you needed to vent out? Complaining, as it can be also bent out or being, I feel too. Yeah.
It's a good question. I think maybe I'm not super comfortable complaining. I think maybe I have a bit of that like toxic positivity thing, because I think I found, for example, when my dad died, I think I really noticed myself saying, because, you know, my partner's mum died, like your dad passed away, like lots of our other friends have lost parents. So I think I kept on finding myself saying like maybe don't talk about this, definitely not that, but like just be mindful that other people have gone through this. But I think that was definitely coming from myself, not from anybody else, because it wasn't once where you said like, well, my dad died as well, of course. So it's sort of like, I think I'm not, maybe that's something that I need to bring in more, about finding it more comfortable to complain. But I think I'm not that, like, how do I put it? Like, I think I struggle when things can't change or won't change. This is probably super avoidant. I don't find it helpful to go on about it that much. Is that avoidant?
Going back to a bit avoidant.
I'm like,
am I an avoidant person? No, yeah, I mean, like, I hear you, I get it. Yeah,
I think maybe it's a way, and I think also, like, just to kind of bring it back to the complaining thing, I do think that it's important to recognize that people do process problems and pain and difficult things differently. I do think that if I have like a problem that I really need to kind of break down and hear people's advice, I probably have like a select few that I will be like, oh, and so like, I don't know, for example, like, shall I take this job because these are the pros and the cons? But is that complaining? I think that's more like problem solving rather than like, I'm talking about like chronic complaining.
I think it was something you said there was really interesting as well, like how we need to also complain to kind of let things out, and how complaining is part of human nature for us to kind of like drain things. Because if we never complain about anything, like, that means, I don't know if that means that your life is too perfect, or I don't know, that's even a reality, or maybe that's why I thought about avoidance, because it's maybe like, oh, I don't want to see what's going on maybe wrong in my life, because I want to complain about it too much.
Yeah, you're making me think that.
Weird. I think it's a weird balance there, because I think maybe like our personalities are more like positive and blindly positive, which make us less complainers. But sometimes it could be like we don't want to see deeper things to not get to the complaint. I think it's kind of like an interesting cycle of like, I don't want to get to that point, so to get that point I need to do this, but then it's kind of like maybe not beneficial at one point.
I do think you're right, and I think it's interesting because I think with my dad dying, for example, not to go on this topic too much, but I think I definitely, and maybe I do that the same, like I definitely know that I put that in a box, and I think I know, like I was like, I'll deal with that when I deal with that. Obviously, I've definitely dealt with some things, but I also am very aware that there's stuff that I haven't dealt with because like I'll like deal with it when the time comes. Am I avoiding once again?
Avoidance bots. This avoidance. But maybe, I don't know, maybe that's like also like in, I don't, maybe I'm totally wrong by this, but saying this, I don't know. But say maybe it's like emotional intelligence tool to kind of like putting things in a place and process them like bit by bit as you need or as you're ready, more than being like drawn in the situation and like fuck to the bottom of the sea of the situation. So I think it's that approach as well. It's like true. Okay, I'm gonna put which I don't know, maybe it's bad, maybe it's not good, who knows, right? Like we are not obviously psychologists, but maybe it's good to like that idea of put something somewhere, and when I can, when I feel ready, I take those things out, I process. So maybe it's also a way of deal.
I think so. And I feel like, do you not find
I'm like, don't worry, Claire, you're not avoidant. You're not broken. You're fine the way you are.
I put it in a book for never.
The never opening bots. The key is lost.
Do you find, if you can think of somebody in your life who's a really big complainer, do you find it draining? Because I think you're very patient. But do you find it draining when people are complaining to you? Do you have a limit? And do you, on the other side of that, do you find it draining when you complain? Even though I actually can't think of the last time you complained. I'm trying to think. But, you know, if you complain to Anders, for example, like, do you find that energy draining to receive and to give?
I think the complaining energy is definitely draining. Unless it comes with a really good storytelling behind. I think I can get behind it for a bit. You know, if you're fucking complaining but you tell me like a really good story and your storytelling is amazing, it's like, okay, I can go with it for a bit.
Okay.
But I cannot just like sit with a friend and have an evening complaining.
Yeah.
That's something that for me is like, let's do it for 10 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Or for example, for me, if it's something really important that happened in your life and you need to vent.
Yeah.
I'm going to be extra patient and I'm going to be like open to hear.
Yeah.
But definitely I do feel like complaining, it's good in really small doses. And I think like a really long periods of that is bullshit. I really find it really draining because for me it's draining.
But why? What is it though? What is it that's draining for you?
You know what it is.
I'm like, let's dig in deep to this.
Let's dig deep. I think for me, complaining has a lot of this vibe of like it cannot be solved, so let's go around it too much. And for me that's fucking boring. It's like we have an issue, let's talk about it. Okay, we complain, now what? That's for me more my approach. And I cannot go on the same thing of complaining all the time. And sometimes, for example, I complain about work and we complain about work, which is not typical. Sometimes we're like, okay, well, like, let's cut it here. Because it's like, I can complain about things every single day, but what I'm gaining out of that.
Hey, let's talk about the different types of complainers.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like the personality type. So you've got the chronic complainer that complains about everything all the time, finds something wrong in every situation and gets stuck in filling the water, gets stuck in a cycle of negativity. You've got the venting complainer, so needs to kind of let off some steam, but then moves on quickly afterwards. The solution seeker, which complains with a goal of fixing the problem, more likely to take action, which it sounds like you're more, kind of thing. Then you've got the passive-aggressive complainer. Complains indirectly through sarcasm or subtle jabs. That's scary. Wants others to pick up on their frustration without stating it outright. Freaky. Then you've got the humble brag complainer. Complains, but in a way that shows off. I think I know. That's interesting. Like an example would be like, I hate it when people keep asking me for a career advice just because I got promoted. I think we all know that. I think you find that a lot in work, actually. Then you've got the competitive complainer. So always has a worse story than you. Turns everything into a suffering contest. So like, you're tired, well, I only got 2 hours and you got 5, for example. And then you've got the validation seeker, so complains to get sympathy and support. Often asks, but don't you agree? That kind of thing. So please, listeners, do identify yourself as what kind of complainer you think you are, because I think we can all think of these examples. I do think there's something about the you know, the competitive complainer. That's I think that's kind of going into that, what's that condition called where it's like it's not like when you're hypochondriac, but it's maybe it's hypochondriac, maybe, but it's like
when you always
trying to up the person for, anyway, we'll find out what that is. But I do think people get that a lot with like illness, for example.
Okay, yeah, all right.
But I think
know what
people,
you mean.
have you noticed that? Like sometimes I think people when they get older really get energized by complaining about their illnesses.
That's so true. That's a so really interesting thing, you know. And you're so right. I've seen that. Like, I think older people, they tend to like, I feel like, which is, I guess the validation complaining is kind of like maybe to feel like they're going through something hard. They need to tell really like loud what they're having to someone to be, oh, I'm sorry, poor you, kind of thing.
Do you think this comes from like, not going too deep, but do you think this comes from childhood? Probably, as most things. Like, do you think somebody who is seeking validation, like as an adult, like, oh, poor you, like, it's so sad, like, didn't get that enough when they were younger?
Probably, yeah.
Maybe.
I think so. And I think, like, I guess as you get older, all your worst bits, to say in a way, or like, all your like weaker points, they get even weaker. So I guess when you're getting older, that kind of show up more and more.
I think the way that I complain definitely comes from my mum, because I think my mum is super like, yeah, that's really hard, but what are we going to do about it? Like, that's super my mum. Like, she's super like...
resolution complainer?
The resolution complainer. And I think I've definitely got that as well. And I think, I don't know, sometimes I do think, like what we were touching on at the beginning of the episode, like I do think sometimes... I do actually agree with you. I think that was a really good point about the avoidant thing, because I do think sometimes you do need to kind of like marinate in stuff a little bit. And I think I marinate like a chicken or some tofu. I feel like I don't do that enough, because I'm like, that's rough, but anyway, next. And I think that, you definitely mirror that from your parents. Probably. And you kind of do. How about your mom? Like, is she very solution-y, or what would you say?
I don't think she's a big complainer. I think she can complain, but she always at the end of the complaint is like, you know, like, God will help us, you know, very Latin American mom as well, like, everything's gonna be fine, God will be there for us to helping us with this. Definitely. We're gonna find a solution. And I think I got that from her, because I think even when she can be really, so just going back to what you say, is your childhood and your upbringing, even when things are really bad, I think she always tend to close things with like, we will see and we will find a solution.
Totally.
It's kind of never the end of the world.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's interesting. I think that's where I got it as well. So I kind of feel like it's going to be fine anyway. Going
into that kind of a little bit, just as we are from different cultures. As you know, Enzo is from Venezuela. I'm from the UK. I want to talk a little bit about how different cultures complain. I thought this was very interesting. So you've got kind of like the US and Western countries. So you might find a lot more direct and assertive complaining is common. But then opposed to like the UK, complaints are generally very indirect and wrapped in politeness. And also we might use sarcasm and humour. I definitely think that that's quite true.
You guys complain a lot, to be honest.
I think so, right?
Yeah.
But then they gave an example and I thought, fuck, they've got us there. Where people might say, Brits might say, oh, that's interesting.
It's so passive aggressive, but that's so British.
Isn't it? So a very different culture, Japanese culture, where complaining is very rare openly because harmony is really valued. So people may complain, but very subtly, and they will use kind of non-verbal cues, e.g. a pause or an awkward smile.
Oh,
that seems really stressful.
Well, that's like a lot to read.
Very. So what would you say about, I think I know what you're going to say, because I feel like I know Venezuelan culture quite well now.
Yeah.
But what would you say about complaining, and obviously not for the whole of Latin America, but for Venezuela?
It's kind of interesting, to be honest. I think, like, obviously I want to talk about Venezuela. Probably it's quite similar around Latin America. I think, like, we tend... You made me think here. Definitely, like, our way of complaining is quite different. And I think I would say something like, for example, Venezuelans, our complaint is very resolution. I think, like, no one has time to complain too much, you know?
Interesting.
Like, I think I think like obviously like let's talk. This is culturally, but also like a context of the country. Like the last 25 years, the country has been in a really shaky situation, and you always need to find a way to keep up going, right? So it became part of the culture, and it became part of who we are, being like how we ride the wave, how we get into the wave, and we ride it, and we don't get like splashed by it to death, right? So it's kind of like this is this way, but how we're gonna do it. Like also think interestingly, religion plays, I will mention before, like a interesting role on how we deal with complaining, because it's always on the name of God will help us. Like this is really wrong, but God will come. But God will like guide us. Everything's gonna be good and everything's gonna be okay. And that makes me think like also about Colombians, for example. I think they were quite similar in ways. And like we have a friend from Colombia, Christina, and she's very like always like everything can be like so wrong and so fucked up, but she will say, but don't worry, everything is good, thanks God, and it's kind of like that cultural thing that is very present in Latin America and in Venezuela. So I think like it's more resolution. I think we don't have a lot of time to sit and to marinate on complaining, which I guess again it can be an issue if you never complain.
I don't know, you're making me think, but please correct me if I'm wrong. It kind of sounds like then therefore complaining is kind of a luxury that not every culture has
100%.
Or not every country has, because for example Venezuela, thank God, is in like a slightly different situation now. But obviously 10 years ago, if you can't even buy milk or bread, then it's a bit like, well, let's not complain about the weather because we have bigger problems. But then it's the flip side of that. It's like, well, which I believe that the country has done and like spoken up and like taken action and that kind of thing.
But the thing is, you're right, it's a luxury. Like you don't have time to sit and complain about like where you can get food. You need to like that's a big thing. I think it's like the luxury of which I think, for example, maybe in the UK, which is in a different economic situation and moment in life, maybe you guys can have more of the luxury of complaining.
Can you think of a country, because I can, and I say this with love, but can you think of a country that's really big on complaining?
Italians.
And obviously we can say this because we both have Italian heritage, but what is going on there?
God.
What is going on there? Because you made me think, but so much, including yourself, of Venezuela has Italian heritage. So you've got the religion that obviously came from Italy and Spain. But there's something that's not going right there with the complaining.
Honestly, that's a really good point, because you would think, I don't know if they have a lot of luxury to complain, to be honest.
And that's what I'm thinking.
I don't know.
But then Italy has been, once again, maybe it is going back to that. And I think that would require kind of more research. But Italy has been fairly stable since the end of the Second World War, give or take. Obviously, they've had like economic crashes and but not this. It's nowhere near the same as like Latin America. I'd say like the UK and Britain are probably in a kind of similar sort of situation. But there is something
definitely
cultural there,
and that's something that it's not shade at all. It's something that everyone knows and says about Italian. Like they complain a lot, and that's part of like the way of socializing. They reunite, how they get together, how they talk about their issues, how they talk about the good things. Is always my complaining thing. Which honestly I cannot explain where that comes from.
Me neither. If you're an Italian watching, please let us know.
I think they have these things of like they're never fully satisfied because maybe they think things could be better, maybe, but I think they don't take action of it.
Kind of to wrap up this topic.
What a good topic, Claire. This is we can talk about this for ages. Honestly, complaining is such a thing.
I'm gonna leave some links to articles in the show notes so you guys can keep on reading about this. But I wanted to kind of leave you with some tips about the art of complaining effectively.
Ooh, I love that.
If you're kind of listening to this and you're like, I want to complain more, I want to complain less, I'm somewhere in between.
How can I do it
Take
properly?
these steps and maybe it will help you with your complaining.
Love it.
So number one, you want to be clear and specific. So get really specific about the details rather than just saying, my life is rubbish, for example.
Okay.
2, stay calm and respectful. I think that's definitely true. Like people respond better to polite requests rather than angry vents. And one thing that I would say about that is, I've said this before on the podcast because I really love this, but I would say if you do want to vent, complain, I think it's really polite to ask the person who you're venting or complaining to, because our friends don't exist there just for us.
You're right.
Our friends have their own world, their own relationship things, their own work things, money things, everything, and they might not be in that place to hear your things. So I think it's really nice to say, like, I need to vent. Are you in a good place for this?
Yeah, it's true. This is something that you do. I think that's really good.
Thank you.
That's a really good tool.
Thank you.
And I really took that in.
So then 3, offer a solution. So suggest how the issue could be fixed. So, you know, you can come up with your own solution as well. Like bring that to the person. Number 4 is complain at the right time and right place. So that's kind of what we were saying.
Yeah.
Then you want to focus on the facts, not emotion. So,
that's a
you know,
hard one.
that kind of thing. And then also the final one, which I think is key, is know when to stop.
Oof,
so don't
that's
keep going round.
That's the hard one.
Because I think we can get really like but it's what you said about like that you don't like that feeling, how you feel, or that version of yourself. And I totally agree. Because it's kind of like a icky feeling. Do you feel it's like,
it is.
Oh, like I feel bad because I've complained. I feel bad to him because I've just been complaining to him. It's like,
I know what you mean. Maybe we need to have like a timer for complaining. Like I will complain for 5 minutes, and that's it.
And I think we should be able to say to our friends, like, stop.
Stop
it. I'm cutting you off.
In the name of Mahmood, stop, please. In the name of J-Lo, this has to end. Like, no, yeah, it's true. I think we have to do that.
Have you ever cracked at someone? Like, have you ever cracked and been like, stop fucking complaining? Have you ever?
I don't know, actually. Maybe. I didn't think about that.
I think I know when you're done, because I think you're just like Enzo's left the building, Enzo's left the conversation, and I'm like, he's done.
I'm like a corpse. I'm like a shell. Nothing is not thought behind those eyes, you know that.
Any final thoughts on this topic?
So I want to ask you, like, do you have one thing that you think you complain and you feel like you do it a lot and you need to do it for your own well-being or something?
You mean that I don't complain about, or I do complain
or something
about?
that you complain, or do you know that you clocked yourself being like, oh yeah, I complain about that a lot?
Yeah, definitely. I think
it could be a silly thing. It could be something as silly as, I don't know, I complain a lot about skincare being expensive. You know what I mean? We can complain about everything.
I think the thing that I complain about most is work, and I think last year I was in like a really negative place about that for reasons, and this year I just decided, like, I'm not doing that anymore. Like, love that. I know what my options are.
Love that for you.
That's it. It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make me feel any more creative. It doesn't make me feel any more inspired. It doesn't get me closer to anybody. It just makes me feel shit. And I don't like that feeling. And I think that it came from a lot of anger.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place
to be.
And now, you know, I feel in a different place to it, but I feel like that's better for me anyway. So I just am like, I'm literally like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that with anybody at work. Okay. I'm not doing it like privately either. I'm just like, done.
Good.
Enough.
Good one.
How about you?
I complain about, like, I do complain things, for example, like commuting to work. There's something that I know.
I mean, that's annoying though.
It is annoying, but sometimes I need to refrain myself, because I can literally complain every fucking day about commuting to work, because it's long, it's boring, it's like people are annoying at the commuting, it's too early, I'm not awake at the time of the day. Like, I can complain. Honestly, I think I can complain every day, but that's something like I feel it could be a bit childish as well, because it's kind of like you need to go to work, you need to get done with it, and that's it.
I mean, I would back you up on that one.
So I think it's such a waste of time and energy. I can invest that time and energy on working at home
100%
than doing all of that to get to the office, which I'm gonna be like pissed. Also because I hate it's so much time. There's like in between, you're not awake. I don't know. I can complain that. I know I can complain about that.
Have you thought about, like, not to offer you a solution, but have you thought about romanticizing your commute to work?
Love that.
I don't know how you would do that.
Like with a little search on TikTok maybe.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's like something about that. Because I do think, like, talking about that thing about like being an adult and whatever, like, there are some things that you're just gonna have to do. Like,
grow up, bitch.
We're gonna have to like pay our bills.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to commute to work.
Maybe I should romanticize it more.
And
honestly.
you know what I mean, like things like that.
I think sometimes I try. Little times I try to romanticize, in the sense of, like, I think when the sun is shining, for example,
beautiful.
I'm like, look at the sun shining through the windows of the train.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I take a picture.
Yeah, that's
and I put
so
on my
cute.
stories.
Yeah.
And I put like Thursday. You know, like, and I try to be like, okay, this is not really that bad. I'm very lucky to have the money to pay transportation in London, which is really expensive. And second, like, having like a way to go to work. A lot of people, they need to go walking for hours, or they have to get into a donkey. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I have so many luxuries. But yeah, I think I will try to. Good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you because I also hate commuting to work as well.
You're alone on this. Try your best, sis. But I will try to romanticize it more, and I will come back with some findings about how it works. Yeah, I ended up loving it.
Any final thoughts on this topic?
No, I think I'm fine for now. I think I'm gonna take some of this, a lot of this information and think about it. I think you gave a lot of. I like the tips.
Okay.
How to be effective complainer.
A bit more of an effective complainer,
I love
definitely.
That.
Okay, awesome.
Really good. Thank you very much, Claire, for bringing this topic.
Thank you for sharing the topic with me, love. Thank you guys, everybody, so much for watching and listening.
Thank you very much, familia.
Yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
See you next episode. Bye-bye.